Life.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 18th episode of Splat Chat. I am Keon. I have an eccentric group of panelists and guests with us. We got Kevon, who Mike may have been possessed at some point in the past few minutes. We'll talk about that later. We got the guy whose team is currently named TCS for reasons of Nintendo's name length DRF, and we got our area cup correspondent and the person who's watched both tournaments this past weekend, Pastry. How are we doing, gang? What's the morale?
I'm okay. I just rushed home after setting up my college teams. We've got Overwatch matches tonight, and I get back and I boot up my PC and my audio software goes on the fritz, and so I was the delay. If you want anyone to blame for the 7-minute delay, that is me. That is not CKK. That is not the folks at Broadcast Beep. That is squarely on me. So that's the way this goes. But other than that, I'm doing great. Life goes on, right? September's almost done, so that's good news for all of us.
That's awesome. DRF, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I feel like that I am still mentally recovering from the NA League this past weekend. We'll get more into that. That's going to be a very big topic today. But I otherwise, doing well. Just kind of wrapped up work to jump into this. So ready to talk all things Splatoon from the past weekend.
Pastry, how about you? How are you doing?
I'm having a great one. I'm currently recovering from getting raptured. I don't know what happened there, but I got raptured apparently. But other than that, it's a great weekend, or a great weekday, especially a great weekend for Splatoon.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic weekend of Splatoon. 2 big tournaments happened. We'll talk about one of them right about now. And it's the Splatoon 3.
No one asked you how you were doing, Kyon.
Nobody.
True.
No, that's true. You know what? That's fair. I'm doing well. I also just came off of work probably just a while back, and I'm having to pack for my trip this Friday, and I'm still not as ready. So, yeah, that's gonna be a thing I'm gonna have to do right after Splat Chat wraps up.
I was not kidding, by the way. I will be eating my dinner during this podcast episode. So,
you know what?
Yes,
that's where we are right now.
That is the nature of working in an academic and esports job at the same time.
Yep. All good.
Gotta love it. All right. Let's go ahead. We gotta address the 2 big tournaments that happened. One of them, of course, being the Splatoon 3. It's the North American League that has just kicked off this past weekend. To my recollection, it's just the first of, I think, 2 preseason weeks. Someone will have to fact check me here on this, but the first one kicked off. There is going to be the big elephant in the room we have to talk about here before we go, and I guess we could talk about that now, or we can talk about the bracket real quickly here. But real quickly here, we got it was pretty much a tournament that started with the ladder round. Basically, team just continuously fighting others just to get their way up to the top, and then bracket stages started later, which included your top 8. Now, DRF, I'm gonna go over to you. You participated in this tournament. How was the experience?
I'm still tired.
Yeah. And that's the voice of someone who is actually dead inside right now.
Yeah. I will say that I don't think I have played in a format that was as brutal as this, and maybe that's also just me getting old, because 8 hours straight of playing pretty competitive Splatoon matches, outside the few little Timmy teams that you run into in the ladder, is definitely pretty rough.
You said it was 8 hours?
Yes,
talk us through.
Yeah, so I guess we'll map it out. So we got online. So I'm in Pacific time, so I'll kind of use Pacific time as a reference here. But 11:30 is when we got on to warm up. The ladder started at 12. You play ladder from 12 to 3. By the time that we finished our final match, it was a little bit after 3. We gave ourselves, it was probably like 3:15, let's say, and then we gave ourselves 30 minutes to go get lunch, or probably like 40. Came back, got warmed up again, and then at 4 o'clock had to jump into this 8-team double elimination. And if you know anything about double elimination, it always just takes absolutely forever, no matter how efficient you are with it. So by the time we had finished, we were pushing 8 o'clock Pacific time, probably even maybe a little bit after that. So it was a pretty solid 8 hours of playing since we started at 11:30. So that was all I did that day.
That was also that was like an 8-hour almost work shift. It was.
I literally clocked in to play Splatoon and then clocked out. It said, it's like your job. You don't want to touch it once you go home. Like I clocked out and said, no, we're done. We're not touching this thing again.
Was there anything that was like as close to that in terms of length when it comes to like tournaments of 4?
There has to be something.
I mean, just lands in general. Like it's especially if you go to some of the locals. Like I love all the locals. I think they're fantastic. Sometimes they are pretty guilty of running a lot longer than they should. And that's happened at SoCali, that's happened at Sunset Surge and Booyah Bay, and I've won all 3 of those locals. And you're basically, they're playing for pretty much 8 hours the entire time. But something about a LAN, like it's tiring, but like in a different way where you're like, hey, we're gonna, muscle through this. I think in an online setting, it's actually somehow more fatiguing, just because you're not feeding off of the energy of other people. It's just you and your teammates, in this call. You're fighting lag a little bit more. So it's definitely a weird, different sense of getting tired after playing for a prolonged period of time.
I was gonna say the 8-hour long format. Now I've done TO for one particular tournament that ran about 6 hours. I thought that was bad enough, but then hearing that long that length of time was crazy.
If you're a TO, I'm gotta be there before and after. So yeah,
Kmon raises his hand because you would know.
Yeah, I would know. Well, I was actually clocked in for those 8 hours as the person that was clocked in. I mean, as the TO, ladder for these events starts running itself after hour 2, and less disputes start happening. It's just a usual or a random disconnect errant here or there. And then the top 8 bracket also virtually ran itself. We're trying to be a little more hands-on and trying to encourage people to pick their stages quickly. So if you quickly write down your picks, hats off to you. But I will say, as the TO, who definitely was not expecting to sit around for that long, I was pretty tuned out by, even the time the bracket started. So I can only imagine what it felt like to actually play. Yeah, so it was interesting from my perspective. I think there's a lot of, it's the first event, right? So there's going to be an inherent learning curve. But to some people's points, there's a good chance that top 8 is much closer next time, or maybe not significantly so, but at least a little closer, depending on who decides to show up, which could mean that things go on for longer. So my plea to you all as the players, please pick your stages and modes as soon as you can. Think about it ahead of time before the tournament starts, and please auto lock what you're thinking of playing. You don't need to counter pick just pick whatever you're comfortable on. There's no strategy or whatever. Just pick whatever you're comfortable on and move on with life. No need to sit here for 3 minutes and think about your single. You don't even get to choose both. You get to choose mode or stage. So pick one and move on.
I have some opinions on this. So
go for it. So
first of all, not to call anybody out, but a couple of folks that we played 6 matches. We played by far the most matches during the top 8, because in classic TZS fashion, we can't take a straightforward route. But it took folks so long. Like, yes, we were guilty of it once or twice because we were trying to figure out exactly, where do we go to. But there was times when the NA representatives or the Nintendo reps had to go into chat and be like, hey, what's your pick? A minute or two passes, ping again. Hey, what's your pick? I think at one point, like there was one time they had to ping 3 times for a team to lock in their counter pick.
3 times?
Yes,
What?
and even then, there was multiple times in the top 8 that folks tried to counterpick us to things that were against the rules. They tried to take us to the same mode. Someone tried to take us to Eel Tail. Like again, I love all of our opponents. All of our opponents were great to play against. I'm sure they're all lovely people. Read the rules, please. Literally, as TZS as a team, we sat down when we registered and read through the entire rule set line by line to make sure we understand it, because Nintendo events are inherently very different than what the grassroots community has. So we wanted to be prepared. We had a list of maps and modes that we wanted to counterpick to. Now, to K-Bot's point about, hey, just pick what you're most comfortable on, I do agree that that's where you should be going like 75% of the time. But I do think that the way that this counterpicking system works, there's actually an inherent strategic element that is incorporated into this format that has not really been explored in other traditional counterpicking systems. And that's when we held up the tournament slightly. There was one time I had to message the mods and say, hey, apologies, we need a second here because we're trying to cook up a strategic element here to what our decision is. But I just outright apologized and said we just need, an extra 60 seconds. So at the very least, if you're going to take a while, let them know, apologize for it, but still try to make it as fast as possible.
The behind the scenes is you're supposed to have 45 seconds.
See, that's not in the rule set though.
That's not in the rule set, but that's the behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
You're supposed to lock things in within 45 seconds. Now, is there a way to properly enforce that online? No. But get it, Ed. I'm sure people will get better at it as it goes on, right? But yeah, actually, to that end, as I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, I expect that we're going to have a almost completely different top 8 for this week.
Yes.
So it might be just as long next week, and people will still have to get used to it. But eventually, everyone will have played one of these things. So show will be on the road by then.
The kicker from what I saw is there was only, and I was told about this, there were 2 game 5s. Most of the top 8 that I saw was sweeps, and we still had a pretty long run time. So I guess with it, when we start getting to preseason week 2, and you start seeing a lot of back and forth sets play out, oh boy, might be in for the long haul. That's, I think, that's the big thing people will probably need to keep an eye on. And of course, words from DRF and the TO K-Bot, of course, is to get your picks in. Pastry, what are your thoughts with this very long, with how long the event went?
Yeah, I do definitely have some opinions about the lanes. But also, I do want to after double click on how interesting the strategic element of it is. At least what my thoughts are. I was watch partying alongside some other streamer in Kyo, right? And it did go to midnight for my time. And it's like, makes sense, it's fair. But I was also thinking, in hindsight, if you're not in top 8, your tournament runs pretty standard. 3 and a give or take a little bit more. If you're not specifically in the top 8, you're chilling there. But it seems like the players that get into that top 8, for example, UDRF, you have a whole other gauntlet. It's by the sounds of things, it's pretty unique. If the only comparison lengthwise is a LAN, it's that is quite unique.
Yeah. DRF, maybe next week you all will want to just barely miss out on top 8. What do you think?
Honestly, I do think that. So for one, we're still gonna gun for it. Obviously, people are gonna say that yes, week 1 is watered down. Are we gonna be in the finals again? I mean, maybe. It depends who signs up. But I do think that one takeaway from the first week is that a lot of top level teams looked at it and was like, "Oh crap, Like we gotta buckle up for every time we do this because we're clearing our entire day to participate in each of these qualifiers. And I think a lot of top level teams are going to look at this and have to sort of plan out, hey, when do we actually want to play? Because it's an all-day affair. It's going to be 8 hours long, possibly, give or take an hour, depending on how things go. And yes, only 5 of the 8 are going to actually matter. So now, do teams want to try to maximize the opportunities and play all 8? Possibly risk some burnout, or do they strategically find, hey, we're going to just pick 5 weeks that work best for everybody, balance, some time off, some other tournaments maybe. So I'm really curious to see what, some of those top teams ultimately decide to do when they plan out their schedule for the entire season.
Yeah, that's a good point, that you don't have to do every single thing to get your best.
You don't have to do this to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you kind of do.
You kind of, hey, if you want to get to the top, yes, you kind of do, but you don't have to do it all 8 weeks. And low key, if teams ultimately strategically plan out, 5 or 6 to play in, it might actually open the doors for a couple of sneaky teams to get through, maybe like TZS, but so we'll have to see. But I do think that there is just a very slight level of strategy there.
I think the more likely thing that's going to happen is, I don't actually know if leaderboard results will be updated or if they will be shared. I assume they will be over the course of the season as it progresses.
They already are for week 1, so there is a leaderboard that you could see.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Maybe so. There's like a preseason leaderboard or something in the middle.
Yeah, there's a preseason leaderboard.
Okay, gotcha. So presumably that will be updated. I would not be surprised to watch like your FT Win or Milky Way of the world play the first 5 weeks, get enough points, and feel like they're pretty well set to not play the last 3 weeks. I think that's more likely to happen, and so I don't think there's going to be a very dedicated like we're going to play it out exactly these 5 or like we're going to play it all of them. But they probably know that at some point they'll have enough points to basically be a lock. And I think that's probably what they're most likely to look for. I think it's the teams like my team, the teams like DRF's team, the teams like Moonlight that are going to want to play in every single one to have the best possible opportunity to make sure that they are not left out of playoffs.
And that's probably something to just definitely keep in mind with the weeks that progresses throughout the season. I think exactly to your point, K. But I think if you're a top team, would look at their points and they're like, okay, I think we're comfortable skipping this week. Especially you're gonna probably see, and I think I agree with you. I think you'll start to see it at the end. I think that's where it starts to become a lot more prevalent. Speaking of which, there's the season results. Thank you, CKK, for providing what DRF was talking about there. So yeah, there are all the points there too. Which real quick, oh god, it actually does go a bunch of many pages. So it probably covers pretty much the majority of the teams that got points for either participating
that actually
or
goes way longer than I thought.
Oh, it's going.
It's still going.
Whoa, it's off.
Goodness. I do want to circle back though. So yeah, top 8 I think has been heavily discussed about through especially with preseason week 1. That is, I think you guys are going to be ultimately correct. I think expect to see a different top 8, especially when SuperJump happened this past weekend, where the priority might have been there, so there wasn't really a good chance to participate in the NA League. But just to give you guys a recap with how top 8 played out, it was of course TZS. You got What's Quackin'. Someone's gonna have to correct me on the pronunciation. I think it's Lania Kea or Lania Key. Lania Kea. Close enough. Impulse, Duck Motif, Mischievous Mog, Bad Villain, and Ziphias rounded out the top 8, and I believe these would be the top 8 teams from playing in the from ladders. Now, DRV, you guys had a pretty decent run to the end, only to drop to Game 5 against Lania Kea in, I believe, losers finals if I read the bracket right. How did that top 8 run felt for y'all?
Well, slight correction there. So we did make it to grand finals. We did win Game 5 against Lania Kea. And
yeah, you're right. It is grand finals. My apologies.
No, all good. So yeah, I mean, obviously we played 6 sets, which I think contributed to some of that fatigue. But overall, I am very happy with how we did. We got more than our money's worth with playing in this event. We had 4 sets on stream, on Nintendo stream, in front of 1,900 viewers on Twitch, and I don't know how many on YouTube. But
800, I think.
Yeah, so like we got the TZS brand out there. We had the chat rooting for us pretty much the whole way through, which was just honestly so much fun. And ultimately, finally got our first win on a Nintendo stream through the Lanai Kea set. We were 0-6 in individual games and 0-2 in sets on Nintendo. So finally, when we got into losers bracket, got to play against who was it first? Bad Villain, I believe. Then finally got the first game win and set win under our belt, because we came off the Lanai Kea set and we just said, hey, there was definitely for some reason just a little bit of nerves playing in that set. We kept it close, but just couldn't close anything out. And then on top of that, going into the Bad Villain set, Kraken had just gotten back. He had gone to like Walmart or something for 5 hours. I don't know. All I know is he was gone for 5 hours.
Went to go get the milk or what? So like,
yeah, like he was gone for 5 hours, and I know Walmart was included somewhere in that. So I'm just gonna say that Kraken got lost in a Walmart for 5 hours. But he came back and gave us some fresh legs. So I was able to sub out. Kraken came in, and suddenly we just had this whole new life in the team, because he had not been playing the game the entire time. So it was, really, really cool to just kind of get that nice burst of energy to, sweep through Bad Villain, have that really good set to come back against Lanai Kea, get the run back victory there, and then, take the first game win off of Duck Motif as well.
DRF, we have to talk about that game 5. That game 5, that's gonna go down in Splatoon history. I sent a little clip of it because the whole entire push that you guys did lasted the entire clip. We have to talk about this. This is actually insane.
By all means.
CKK, it's in the actual text channel for the voice call.
Oh, I see it.
Not in any of the Discord text channels. Yes, I'm breaking the fourth wall because that is the most efficient way to do this.
No kidding on that.
Like, not that many pushes you can fit into a clip,
So this is the push. Oh, I think I see how this is all gonna play out. Actually, isn't it? Because it's probably just as crazy as it looks.
It was literally all gas, no brakes. That's just what this came down to. We landed all of our shots. I say we like I was in this game, but we landed all of our shots. And actually, I think that there is a lot more that than meets the eye here with how this game sort of shook out. I'll kind of let the rest of this clip play through, but as you can see, it's just we got everything we wanted. And as Pastry said, like, it's not very often you could get a whole tower control victory in a clip on Twitch.
Yeah, it's unreal, actually.
That was like the perfect 100-0 victory in that game. In that game 5, like I think there were barely any pauses, if any. That was probably the most efficient you could have done with that push, DRF. And obviously you weren't playing. I'm guessing that was Kraken that subbed in to close it out.
Yeah, DRF definitely deserves credit for that one. For sure. Yeah.
No, I will say actually. So here's the crazy thing: is
DRF
that
cheerleader on the bench.
Yes, but I actually, as soon as Kraken came in, I actually assumed the role of coach, because as soon as Kraken joined in, we knew that what was working was Pork's bubble, because a lot of times if all 5 of us are available, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be either me or Pork sitting out. But we were building a lot of our offense around the bubble from the junior, and I said, you know what, that's fine. You guys coast. I was in Twitch chat the entire time, like as the TZS spokesperson, giving insider information and just messing with the chat, whatever. But I was also coaching, because I think if Nine would have reached through across the screen and strangled us with some of our counterpick choices. Because the first time we played Laniakea in the winners semis, we got swept 0-3. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what the specific map modes were. But in the run back, we took them back. Yes, thank you. Umami Zones and Tower Inkblot. We took Laniakea in the run back to Umami Zones and Tower Inkblot, which I understand why Nine was frustrated, because Nine's like, you literally lost on this. You got your butt handed to you. It wasn't that bad, but like I said, it was actually a very strategic decision. And why we actually kind of held up the tournament just a tiny little bit in the losers finals there. Because when we were up, well, I'll kind of focus mainly on the TC Inkblot thing. That game, the game 3 that we had lost in winners semis, stuck with us like through the rest of the tournament. And it was something that we already knew exactly where they beat us. And when we got there and we knew that the last mode was going to be tower control, we looked at our map options and they were all kind of crap. So we said, let's go to one, what we're comfortable with, which is going to be Inkblot, even if Nine is going to be screaming, like, why are we back at TC Inkblot? But 2, we knew the exact game that they were playing and how to counteract it. Because what they had done to beat us the first time was running their entire offense through the Stamper. The Stamper was the complete end-all be-all of their game. Yes, they had a Carbon as well. The Carbon was constantly running in, getting one pick, jumping out. But like that was a nuisance. But it wasn't really dictating how they played the game. Where the Stamper, on the other hand, was the one that was causing more chaos and forcing us to direct attention to them. So what they were doing is, for those that know the term, they were kiting. Like they were constantly, just playing the perfect distance from the tower to try to get chip damage, but then they were retreating so that they were never actually in danger. But we always were being attacked from 2 fronts. So we could never get a tower push going. Now, in that, so we said, we know exactly how to beat them at their game here. If by having me out and Kraken in, Kraken actually has a little bit more leverage to, 1, either deal with the flank, or 2, we just go all in on bats a little bit more. And, at the very least, Pork on the tower and Vapor going to be hovering around the tower as well, will be able to direct their attention a little bit more. The bigger thing was that they didn't go back to the Stamper. They pivoted to the decav. And the decav was not as big of an issue for us. It was the Stamper. I don't know what they were necessarily thinking, but the Stamper is what caused us issues the first time, and we were shocked to see that they had pivoted. So we were already planning to, counteract the Stamper, but then they gave us an even, bigger treat by getting rid of the Stamper altogether.
Yes, it was kind of gift. It was like, oh, okay, you got rid of the one problem. You got rid of the one problem that we were having to deal with. And like, all right, now we know what to do.
Yeah, precisely. Like like I said, they almost kind of gave us, exactly what we needed on a silver platter. And then the rest of the team was like, oh, this is perfect for us. Now we know exactly what to do. And, you get a couple of early picks like we saw there, especially with Pepe finally popping off. As we were, Pepe was kind of off and on again through the entire top 8. But he just turned it on right there and then at the most clutch moment, and just completely smoked them.
Oh, that's a great showing there, of course, from y'all. Especially that game 5 was just magical to see.
I do have a slight follow-up and question, because it sounds like everybody was surprised that you all were picking Turf War and Clan Blitz.
Yes.
As someone who has watched TZS play in Nintendo events, they always do better in Nintendo events for some reason. I wonder why. Maybe it's because they're forced to go over to play Turf War and Clan Blitz. I don't understand why everyone was like shocked that you all are picking those modes. because yeah, that's kind of like your shtick. Like that's just what you're known for. At least in my head. Maybe there's like so many new people to Splatoon that don't understand. I mean, apparently I took it for granted everyone knew who Hexen was, but Popgun didn't even know who Hexen was. So yeah. I digress. I don't know where the narrative came from that like, oh, it's surprising that TZS is picking Turf War and Glamblitz. What? No.
I think that it's you kind of hit the nail on the head in that one. I think there's just so much turnover in the community that people tend to forget. I think that's one thing for sure. But two, I agree. It's a kind of in our name. If our name is Triggerfish Zone Supremacy, we're gonna take you somewhere where you are not comfortable. Like,
bold of you to assume that anybody remembers what Triggerfish looked like. Apparently.
But it was all part of the strategy. You're completely right, K-Bot, that we're gonna take you to Turf War. And we always tend to do well in the Nintendo events. Now, admittedly, we started off on a very bad foot with Turf War. We lost to a team of, I'm going to say Little Timmy's because I did not recognize a single name on there in Turf War because we whiffed the last 30 seconds. That was the only time, though, I believe we had lost in Turf War in the entire tournament. No, sorry. ATP also beat us in Turf War. But yeah, we went like 8-2 in Turf War, the entire event. And it's just that, one, nobody practices it. And that was one of my main takeaways from the entire event, is that nobody's practiced turf in years, and it showed. And it showed from us included. We were very rough on Turf War, but when we finally got momentum on Turf War, every time we took someone there in the top 8, it was an instant win for us.
I would love to talk about the Turf War practice level of a bit here. So just a bit of like a top down type thing, right? Of course, everyone knows that Japan plays turf a lot more than the West. Like there's Collegiate, for example, but it's also a seasonal tournament league called Nawabari Fest, which, funny enough, in turf war, in Japanese, this is Splat Fest, but they call it Nawabari Fest. I don't know why, but anyway, you can immediately draw the difference in a region that practices turf war a lot versus one that just frankly doesn't. They actually have a couple examples here of some of the things I noticed, like in Nawabari Fest, also Koshin, which, like the Japanese majors, right? That I feel the West could absolutely do a lot better. And from what we saw in the NA League, like that I got absolutely pre-ball, with first being the end game for Turf War here. So this is an example from Nawabari Fest, and I want everyone to just pay attention to the timing of the special. So first here, we do see that the bucket for the other team goes down, but very important point about it, that bucket was coolered. So they're gonna have their strikes. It's hard to see the exact timing, but it's around like the 30-ish, 20-ish seconds mark. And this is when they start to throw their specials. They're timing their specials for that 10-ish, that 20-ish second mark, ideally a bit later, but like the teammate broke out in that kind of way. And it's a very simple idea, right? Have your big paint AoE specials ready for that sort of 20-second down mark. But in the Turf War matches that were on stream in the top 8, that did not happen. We had a Stamper that on one of the top 8 sets die without cooler like 30 seconds before they could even get the Booyah on, when they have the Booyah on at that timer. And that last 2 to 3% that everybody likes to complain about, the best way to deal with that inherent flippiness of Turf War is to have your big paint specials ready for the end game. But I feel like we just don't have the repetitions when it comes to that.
But that also goes into the fact that not many teams really practice Turf War in general. Like nobody is like, you're gonna get the 4 ranked modes, and Turf War is just like, oh, it's just an afterthought. So yeah. Like, when you don't have that kind of repetition at the end, it's like, well, how on earth are we supposed to play Turf War? Which, if you have teams that, I'd imagine if there are teams that actually have Turf War maps that they can use to their advantage, they will probably start to show up. And then I think throughout the course of the league, you'll start to see teams probably use it if they're comfortable with it. But I think for this first week, I think it's also clear that Turf War was not really probably in anybody's mind, especially those that participated.
Yeah, it really.
Go ahead. Do you have something quick?
it really does. It kind of those things that we saw at this first week. I really doubt that we're going to see this towards the end game. When it seems like okay, we at least for these last few weeks we need to be at least some kind of low at turf war. We're just going to get perma counter picks for it, for example. But also, I would like to illustrate another thing here with like a separate clip for the.
I would like to comment on that clip.
Yes.
Because there was actually something else that I noticed that I imagine most teams aren't going to think about. So I'll mention it anyway. First of all, in the wise words of NBA Commissioner Mr. Silver, get ready to learn turf war, buddy. Secondly, in the clip that Pastry shared, the thing that I find most interesting is that neither team actually pushed. They kind of just threw their specials and tried to time it for the end of the game, hoping that the scrum, when the snapshot's taken at 0 seconds, plays to their favor. They did not push for a wipeout, push for any picks, push for anything. They just kind of were hoping that they could nudge their opponent back far enough to get enough ink in mid to win the game, hoping that I assume the base is already covered and all of that, right? So that's the thing that I find most interesting, that I think most Western teams especially are not going to be thinking about. It is not a matter of actually pushing to go for a wipeout to win at the end of a turf war game. It is only a matter of the strategy. Oh,
That's the realization though that we came to halfway through the ladder, was that, you know, the reason that we were struggling in those turf war games is that we kept overextending. And we needed to play just a lot more safe. Like Smork was the one that kind of called out, was like, hey, y'all, we're doing this so backwards right now. Like we're going back into, you know, how we need to rush in for ranked modes, whatever. This is turf. We literally do not need to take a single fight in turf. Like we just need to hang back, play it safe, play smart, and only cross mid if it genuinely makes sense to do so.
It is so great that you brought that up, Kayvon, and DRF that. Like you also like your team, like among discussing it, Smork found that realization is that is a really great point, and especially because like your group doesn't run cooler, so it's like if you guys wipe, it stings. It stings really bad. I would also like to bring up another point here about the turf end here. This is Collegiate instead of the not Whiting Fest here, but I really want to talk about the end game here. Can we just pause this here just further it real quick? So. There's two
magnifying glass.
Yeah, so there's two sort of dynamics when it comes to turf war openings. First of all, I just want to say both sides have a reflux. there was a 1 out of 6 pick rate for reflux in turf war. I understand triggerfish zones because you guys don't have a reflux player, but it's like 1 in 6, and the other team picked reflux deco. Why? But anyway, here there's sort of these two sort of dynamics when it comes to the opener for turf war, right? You can have your reflux paint a very specific section of their base, go up, get cooler, and then fight. And we're going to see that here. After they do that, they fight, and then come back and they paint the rest. Either that or they just full paint it. And if we just play the clip right here, we'll see that the like when you start hitting play, like the reflux, they start to like they're painting, they're getting their early missile, they're painting a very specific section of their base, and then watch how they play around the cores. There's a bucket retreating for their cores so they can scrap. But in general, the fluxes they're playing around that time, right? You know, like they trade out whatever happens. But as we start to go into this next 40, 50-ish seconds, the refluxes will start to paint more and more of the base, and we're gonna get a really nice screenshot of how clean both bases are. So here they are, just painting more, but just
the largest thing that I've got is my insert weapon traditional support weapon here can also do that. I guess you would prefer something like reflux, probably mostly just for the global special, but I don't think there's anything in particular special about the kit that people are going to start playing it suddenly because it's good in turf war settings. I mean, I don't doubt that it's good, right? Again, it's the global special, but I don't think that no one's going to go play. Maybe people are going to go play reflux and sweat and try hard.
It did come out.
I mean, it came out, but I just don't think it's going to be picked every game like apparently it is in Japan.
Well, the flux can go either way, and I'm pretty sure idea if you guys picked Neo Splash, right, which is like that's very similar
Yes.
to that's very similar to Reflux. That's understandable. But my main point is the thoroughness of the opener when it comes to okay, we understand that in the first couple of minutes we want to get our spawn painted as efficiently and as cleanly as we can. Granted, we see right now outside's like really pushed in, but they're gonna get pushed out eventually, and then we're gonna see like Brawl's have a really nice clean boot like overall in their base. But this opener of get our base clean painted so we don't have to worry about it for the rest of the game. We really didn't see enough of that during the top 8 here.
I will add that Kraken used to play Reflux when we had the turf ladders be a little bit more consistent. But, since we basically got like a 2-year break from that, I think that was actually the last time Krakens played Reflux. So that's the reason we never brought it up, because we just have not practiced with it at all. So that's part of our discussion as well, is practicing more turf. I personally would like to see Kraken actually pivot to the Reflux, when applicable. I mean, hell, if I need to learn it, get ready to learn Reflux, buddy. Maybe that's a quote. So we'll talk about it, but I do agree. I do, Pastry, I think you're onto something with the prominence of the Reflux in Japanese turf war. It is at the end of the day the best turf war weapon, and Nine mentioned it on the broadcast as well. It's just that it being preseason, I think a lot of folks are still figuring out what they want to use, what they're comfortable with. We, at least TZS, took it as very experimental as well until we realized we had an actual shot to win it. Then we kind of had to lock it and do exactly what we were comfortable with instead. But I think as time goes on, you'll see some of the strategies as folks relearn turf war, that they adjust their compositions. I wouldn't be surprised to see a top level team or two, try to bring out the pocket Reflux as well. I don't think it's going to be universal, but it'll come out every now and then.
A player like Hexed is already dusting that off.
100%.
I was going to touch upon how much practice will teams participating in the North American League how much practice in turf will the teams that are wanting to play in the North American League have to do? Because I'd imagine with it being a viable option now, you'll probably start to see a lot more. Will we get to see a lot more turf war counter picks, or it might just literally depend on comfort and if they're good at it?
Yeah, I think more likely you're probably going to keep seeing North American teams play more Sendoku than they are going to go scrim right now. Or if 3 out of 4 players are available or something, they're going to go play Sendoku instead of trying to find a scrim or something. So I think it's going to be harder for them to play a rotating stage, rotating full mode, including turf war series. I don't doubt that some scrims will try to work it in, especially if higher level teams have scrim partners or something of the sort. But I kind of doubt that you're going to get a lot of practice on it. Maybe like 1 a week if you've got a consistent scrim partner or something. But it's a good idea. You're gonna have to play it, especially if you run into TZS at any point, which apparently people didn't think was gonna happen. But whatever.
Well, I will say for the higher level teams, we saw it in the top 8, and I think this is going to be a consistent story throughout the entirety of the NA League. Is teams are going to pick every other mode possible, hope they can win 3-0 or 3-1, just not picking turf war. You're going to see a turf war game 5 at some point because two top level teams don't want to play it. And people are going to go crazy on Blue Sky because they're like, oh my gosh, turf war game 5. Yeah, because they're avoiding it. But I think that there is room for a top level team to really make some noise, make a big play by being the ones to practice turf war and be ready to take their opponents to it.
Interestingly, time is a flat circle, as it turns out. Here we go, old man Professor K-Bot giving a history lesson for all of the competitive Splatoon fans out there. In Splatoon 1, at the very beginning of the game's lifespan, the second that the August update came out, we were running tournaments for it. The prevailing rule set of Ink or Sink was exclusively inspired by Smash Brothers tournaments, where it was like you struck modes to pick which one you were going to fight on. Now, at the time, you'll also recall there were only 3 modes in the game: Splat Zones, Tower Control, Turf War. And so, in essence, it was a game of Turf War chicken because neither team wanted to waste their ban on banning Turf War. So it was kind of that like Western standoff. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? No one's going to do it. Guess we're playing it on game 1. Like, and that was what it was. So yeah, since you'll wonder why we don't do any of the things that were involved in Inker Sig, because it was a disaster of a tournament because none of us knew any better. But yeah, so we're back. It sounds like we are 1 decade later. We are so back.
No, it's 2020. It's the year is 2066. No one in the West practices Turf War. Everybody tries to avoid it in every single situation. Nintendo still forces us to play Turf War. We don't want to play Turf War. Get me out of this. I want to go.
You're stuck forever. You're just stuck forever, and forever, and somehow Turf War is still with us.
It is hard though. Like K-Bot did bring up a really good point that like, you know, what's the most popular way to practice now? Sendo.inc. What can you do on Sendo.inc? Pick whatever mode you want. And
what you can do on Sendo what you can do on Sendo Q is you can go play Splat Zones only.
Exactly.
So that's what teams go do. And that's all that teams will end up practicing when they play Sendo Q. Which is going to drive me up a wall, but as a coach, but all good.
So real. Get better at Turf War, everybody. Just try. It's hard, but yeah.
What can we expect looking forward to league? We got the preseason week 1 done. What do we expect at least for the upcoming week? Probably down the road, especially what we saw from preseason week 1.
DRF, I'll let you say it.
I feel like there's an expected answer. I mean, what are we gonna see? More Jordan Kent legendary one-liners?
Yes.
Is that what we're trying to lead into here?
No, what we're trying to lead into is the rest of the top level teams that were busy playing in SuperJump over the weekend instead of.
Would you get your run
I didn't want to say, oh, it's ready. It's the big kid's turn.
Yeah, it is the big kid's turn. No, you're 100% right. I figured that's what you were leading into, but you're right. It's going to be, you know, the top, you know, 12 to 16 teams that just did not play in it, barring Duck Motif. You know, which I actually have another separate discussion line there, but yeah, we're gonna see the rest of the folks get on in here. It's gonna be very competitive at the top level. I mean, we're gonna see, you know, basically a whole nother tier of teams is gonna be arriving, and they're gonna be all fighting for those top 8 spots. Everyone that made the top 8 this week, congratulations, good job. You know, maybe we'll see each of those teams make one more appearance throughout the rest of the league if we're talking just purely objective from what the community, I think, is expecting. You know, obviously from a TZS perspective, we'd like to be there more, but we're going to have to certainly fight for it.
To that end,
Definitely.
I will say, I don't think that there are actually that many more top level teams that you could expect. There were like all of the notable absences, but I don't think that there's actually that many. Like TZS squeaking into top 8 is a lot more realistic, I think, than people would probably give it credit for. Duck Motif will almost assure it, like it'll be kind of a shock if Duck Motif, I think, doesn't make a top 8. It'll probably just be like ladder shenanigans or something, right? Will be the cause of it. But if it happens like consistently, then it'll be like, oh, really? That's interesting. But I like the teams that I'm thinking about off the top of my head. Now, granted, you know, I don't think of very many teams nowadays at all anyway. But I can't imagine that there's that significantly more many. So yes, while the higher level teams will come out, and I expect they will get a practice run in, a dry run in, you know, next week. We'll see how the season develops.
I think so. It's just something to keep an eye on as the season goes along. Here you're about to hit the point I was about to mention with Duck Motif, by the way, DRF. Duck Motif is the one team that has participated in not just the NA League in general. They also participated in SuperJump 6, which we're about to go into right now. By the way, bless your hearts, Duck Motif, for playing in two.
Yeah, might as well rename them to Graveyard Shift.
That's a good one. Well,
no kidding on that. But
I mean, let's just get this out of the way, because you're right. Duck Motif, for some reason, decided to do both, and I went and decided to put on my investigative reporter hat, and actually just reached out to Red Shell, and because here's the thing that I think a lot of people overlooked. Duck Motif, they played in SuperJump. They got their direct ticket to Alpha, but they got taken to a Game 5, and that Game 5 on Splatzone's Hagglefish came down to the wire. And on the back of a Red Shell Zipcaster triple, they managed to cling on to the game in the final minute and secure the win. If Red Shell doesn't make that play, we possibly see Duck Motif have to stick around and play Redemption. So the question then becomes, does Red Shell's big play there create a domino effect? And I actually reached out to Red Shell and said, hey, what was the plan to play in both of these the entire time? Because, first of all, you guys are crazy for doing that. But second of all, hats off to you all. And Red Shell said, hey, the plan was to probably play in both no matter what happened. If they had to go to Redemption, they intended to play at least some of the latter, but then it becomes, do they have enough time to make it into the top 8? And because with the Redemption, they made Alpha Bracket right as the ladder started. So they probably got like a 10-minute break, and then they kicked off and, jumped into the ladder and, went 8-0 to secure the number 2 seed. If they play Redemption, yes, they would have been the number 1 seed in Redemption, which means you only have to play 1 match. So in theory, they could have stayed warm by playing at least a set in the ladder, but that just would not be a smart thing to do, because then you risk, missing out, or running into time issues from SuperJump. And the last thing you need is a pissed off Kira in your chat trying to, say, hey, where are you at? But yeah, like here's the exact play.
I vividly remember this.
Yeah, I think you were on the mic for this.
Yeah, no, I was on the mic because here's the funny part. I was the witness to having to watch this go to Game 5 between Duck Motif and Heelbug, which by the way was the free flow pickup that featured Len playing on Blaster for that particular team. And I didn't even put the 2 and 2 together until maybe a couple hours ago. I was like, wait, Duck Motif's in the Splatoon NA League. They literally did get their auto bid into Alpha the next day, and I'm like, oh, I guess they did. I guess they had a lot of time now to play for it. So it was just something I didn't even think about until you brought it up there, DRF. So
yeah. If they play Redemption, they have maybe about an hour and a half to 2 hours to play in the ladder and try to get into top 8. Now, granted, I hate to put it this way, but the bar for entry into top 8 was pretty low. You had to go I think 6 and 2 got you in. So a +4 differential. So Duck Motif probably could have gone 5-0 and actually punched their ticket into top 8. But now it's, again, can you get those 5 matches in that hour and a half to 2 hours you would have had? At this point, only God knows. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, that big play by Red Shell led Duck Motif to winning an entirely different tournament.
Yeah, saved both tournament runs. That's how you know it's a play of a century, is when it saves 2 tournament runs simultaneously. Which is just so crazy. And I remember being on the mic with Fusion for just watching that nail biter of an ending for that Game 5 there in SuperJump. So again, hats off to you, Duck Motif. You guys were crazy. I'll say that much. I don't know if any team would do that again. Thankfully, there's only 1 week that can ever happen. SuperJump 6 in any league, for crying out loud. I know. So we got SuperJump 6. That was the other major that happened this past week. And I know, K-Bot, you're on the mic for basically the latter half of day 2. I was on the mic for the first half of day 1. I know the highlights for me was obviously that Duck Motif and Heelbug set for me before we signed off. K-Bot, I mean, you had what did you think, at least with the sets that you and Magic got to commentate in SuperJump? Yeah, I don't think anything played too terribly against expectation. Like, it was not surprising to see PXG FT win Moonlight podium. It was surprising to see an Oro Jackson roster pop up out of nowhere. And obviously when that roster pops up out of nowhere, they do well. I think they might have had a slight edge over Moonlight if Volti was actually playing, but obviously wasn't for whatever reason. I don't know what the intent was for the roster anyway. Like, it could have been that Volti was just on it as a sub for the whole time. I have no idea, but either way, I think like, if you look at the roster the first time you see Volti, you go, oh, okay, like, they're probably 3, but without Volti, I do think Moonlight beating them is no real surprise there either. Obviously, close match, right? As most things with Moonlight tend to be. So that was fun to watch. My block was very front loaded. You know, we had we weren't supposed to go on for winners finals. That was supposed to still be Raze and Lily, but there was such a long break while we were waiting for it that they were just like, well, let's just do the caster swap now. And we were like, all right, fine, guess we're gonna go on. So we got that one, and I had assumed that FT Win would have a better time with PXG entering this tournament. So it was not surprising to me at all to see them push to 5 games. And mostly that's because I trust that if Hexen has the motivation to play, you best believe that he's going to try to win just as much as Kyo is going to try to win. Yeah, that wasn't surprising to me there at all. What was surprising, and I assume we'll talk into it at some point when we start talking about meta, but this double crab was not the play at all into the comp that PXG was running at the time. But so that was like the largest blunder, I think, for me. I think Magic said it on cast. I don't know if he said it on cast or he said it behind the call, but he said something like, maybe FLC was right. You could lose on weapon select. And to some extent, that's a little bit of what it felt like between PXG and FT Win. Now, like, sure, they could have played better, but in that double crab, I think they have to play perfectly for things to go their way because there's so much that can get thrown at them. Zuka, Booyah, strikes, like anything cancels the crab, meaning that 2 of their specials are basically meaningless. So yeah, this was the game that FT Win started turning it around, but that was the surprise to me. I think the second that PXG realized that they had a bunch of object dealing specials, they were able to pull it out. But yeah, so I guess in summary, I don't think there was anything too terribly surprising. Slight meta picks here or there were maybe more surprising, but that was kind of my largest takeaways, I guess, overall.
I know you just mentioned. I know real quickly your pastry. I know you. I just want to make the comment. Magic saying you losing in Champions just suddenly reminded me of like League of Legends ranked. Yes. Let me pick this mid laner, the worst one of the bunch. I'm like, oh yeah, that's almost an instant lose. We'll just watch the 20-minute train slowly derail itself. Go ahead, Pastry.
How fast will that 15 minutes go? Yeah.
Barry, go ahead, Pastry.
Yeah, speaking of the comps there, like, that is a really fair point about double crab. There's like very, very limited maps where double crab is like, yeah, this is good. And that the use case is it's not there in most situations. I did notice that there was an extremely high amount of backline variancy in the top 8. There was like 4 or 5 different anchors. I sent some like screenshots of it like throughout the teams. It was like FT Win had the cool rapid that we saw, for example, and also like the pen and also the V Charger. And speaking of V Charger, Moonlight and FT Win in the winter semis, they decide to V Charger mirror each other. Like that, like V Charger is a weapon that good. Period. Like it's just so fascinating. Like, you know, after the buff, teams are like, you know what, let's give this weapon has its strengths. Let's give it a genuine shot in this mode where VAC really shines.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to play during your Tower Controller Rainmaker game? Even clams, right? In some use cases, you can make the argument for VAC because now it's, I mean, it looks, I suppose I don't have enough experience on it to actually say this definitively, but it looks like it can never be overloaded at this point. like the thing that you would have to do is you would have to be on full fire rate of the crab tank firing at the vac, and it's still probably going to get most of its time off. So you're still going to be able to protect whoever's sitting in front of you. And I think in that way, you know, if you're thinking about having a dedicated charger player at all, a vac is certainly an option that's worth considering. I loved this look from Moonlight as well, to that point. I made the comments to a couple of them after Riptide that I was like, the more that I watch you all, the more I doubt that a tent umbrella composition is going to be able to break, you know, the threshold that they're going for. I think this leader comp or like leader / charger or what have you has real potential to do incredibly well once they kind of get things figured out. Like if they said they played it basically after like a single day of practice, and obviously it was enough to get them game 5 over Oro Jackson to get third, but this I think there's not been a better time to be a Moonlight fan with the league coming out and with Charger happening. Moonlight fans are definitely going to be enjoying what they see, I think, coming up.
One thing that kind of struck out to me was exactly your point, was that they usually always had the Tenebrello. Shadow was definitely on deck with that, and then I saw Shadow switch to the Zap actually throughout, which I think was a pretty solid choice, especially with that cooler option too.
They need a cooler.
Yeah, which is like, well, did that change really help with their run, or did it just introduce like a totally different dynamic to what the team used to play back then?
I don't know. I mean, the core philosophy, I think, is still not that different. It is, let's get Omega into a position that he can kind of just run around and be distracting like Omega usually is. And Nolan can hold down the fort just fine with whatever 96 scale you put him on. If it ends up being a Kraken, even better for us, right? And Moonlight's always been the team that has tried to stall you out more than anything else. So if you let them have control over the pace of the game, you will be miserable playing the game because there's bubbles or Tet Shield or now Kraken, you know, is even larger of a threat, I think, out of Nolan. And even in some instances, I don't know if this was played during SuperJump at all or not, but if Basil wanted to, you could play 2 Krakens, which will be even more miserable to play against.
Oh no.
So yeah. So, you know, you thought double bubble was bad. How about double Kraken? Good luck with that one. But I think the composition is not that far off from what Moonlight's identity already was, even if it looks like it's a big change because there's no longer a tent umbrella on it. Because it can only move so fast, you know, if Basil's playing leader anyway. And a lot of the tools that they had to play their game, they're still going to have, even if they give away the tent umbrella. And the cooler's just there for added insurance on top of it. So I really don't like it's a shock kind of at first, but once you start thinking about it more, the composition from them, I think, isn't that far off from where they probably are going to be anyway. So again, I think it's kind of like a natural progression of what the next iteration is. And I think we have obviously seen leader comps do fine, more than fine, to say the least. Second in SWS, I think, is fine enough. So there's potential for it, for sure. And teams are going to have some adaptation strategy to it.
Anything that struck you? Go ahead, Pastry.
It's such a great point that Moonlight, like, their biggest strength is, you know, when you're on the hold against Moonlight, you have to push into hell and back to really get back the game. And then Leader does make sense with that kind of play style where it's like, okay, well, now instead of having to get a hold necessarily, I have a weapon that immediately, frame 0, when I am mid, I control 80 to 90% of it. I only don't control basically the flanks and some pieces of the cover. That switch does make sense, you know, with that sort of identity in mind, that more passive play style. And yeah, I just gotta shout out, like, I also like similar, like, Leader in general has seen a bit of a renaissance. And I do hope that the all mode situation that we're in, like, from turf war to all the way to clams, like, allows the anchors to be more flexible with their picks, because especially stuff like turf war humpback, sure, like we probably won't get in a situation where we optimize turf war to that extent, but there has been some egregious comps pick that top level in humpback, and I mean egregious in a positive way. Like there, like in non-buddy fest, there was a semifinals match. One side, okay, so first of all, neither side had core, right? Neither side had core. One side had 2 milk refluxes, so that's 2 booyah bombs. The other side had 2 stampers with a milk reflux, so it was 2 booyahs and 3 booyahs. The other ults were striking crab.
Close enough. Welcome back, Aerospray PG.
It's literally a comeback. It's the Aerospray PG comeback in full force. Like the almost, meta that we're starting to enter, it really does a lot of anchors to clearly not only be flexible, but just pick some.
Hey, Sri, are you suggesting we might see more variety with all modes than we would in Splat Zones only?
1000%. I remember the day Urchin was like a thing, and people were like, people can swap out pencil. Yes, we're free. There's no more pencil. Yes. And now it's that situation times 5. Plus the fact that there's like such a, like the fact that there had to be some community talk, because like we know how the community was so involved in like the day that the NA League got released. There's so many people that are like, hey, I help with this. Hey, I help with that. And I had no idea about half of them, right? But there had to be some kind of like, hey, you need to include Urchin. Because if there's Urchin, it's so nice for the meta. Maybe there's new maps into it, but like.
So I'll very slightly peel back the curtain. I'll have to be very careful with what I say as well. The people that made those tweets do not have any decision-making power with the sponsor of the tournament or the decisions with which the tournament is run on.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's not any of that. There's no collusion, Splatoon Illuminati kind of thing here happening. Let me shut that down real quick.
Yes, okay.
And for that matter, when you see the community people that are helping out in help desks, such as myself, we are there to run the tournament. We are handed the rule book and say, run the tournament. And we say, yes, sir. And we run the tournament. We are not, trust me, if it were up to us, the Splatfest T rule would be gone by now. Well gone by now, but it's still there in the rule book. So, if that's not evidence enough, so don't, there's none of that. I appreciate the fact that you would think that might be true, but in giving these people credit, but no, that's not how it works.
Happy coincidence.
Yeah, right.
Imagine Splat Zones only in tournaments down in Splatoon NA League. We would be entering a very odd time. TCS would have to have Triggerfish be reintroduced in Splatoon 3.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask the admins if we could counterpick to Splatoon 2.
Yes, please.
The K-Bot, consider this our official petition. We're sliding it across the table.
Oh no!
I'm pretty sure Splatoon 2 is not listed a single time in the rulebook, so I'm afraid that's a no-go.
We can only dream. Wanting to circle back to run SuperJump 6. I think you want to touch upon this. Anything that kind of struck out meta-wise that might have been something notable there, notable that was shown in SuperJump 6. I guess what I was trying to ask is anything that kind of struck to you from a meta perspective. And I guess this goes with everybody.
I do have to I do have to bring up the comps here. It's like I just remember like a year ago, right around like the 2023, 2024-ish era, a big problem that Kara brought up with all modes, and I'm kind of like anecdotaling here, so it's like the exact words aren't there, but something you did bring up is that the reliability of something like a GAU or something like shooters in general was very nice in an all mode setting back then, because like the modes are switching with the things you have to prioritize are very they can switch back and forth very rapidly. But then what's nice about like the skill level rising up across the months to where we are now, it seems like teams are just a lot more flexible with the comps they want to play in general, which is just, that's so nice.
It brings a tear to my eye to see the amount of weapon diversity because I think that's where people always get sick of, you get on those tirades on Blue Sky and Twitter, whatever, about like, oh, the meta sucks because it's, the meta is play these 4 weapons and win the game. But Splatoon, in my opinion, has always been, more than that. You have to get creative. There's just so many weapons in your arsenal, like that there's always going to be something you can cook up. But the fact that I forget who it was that put out the graphic of here are the compositions most used by the top 4 teams, and only 1 weapon was repeated. Like, it was a pencil.
Shocker.
Yeah, it was shocker, but it's like, honestly,
it was only repeated once.
That.
Yeah.
Like, I will take that. Like, holy smokes. Like, are we at a point where we actually have a healthy meta where anything, well, not anything, if someone brings up the YouTuber, then we'll have a series of other questions to ask, but there's a lot of viability here.
You are going to get teams that will specialize in certain weapons. Go ahead, K-Bot.
Yeah, I mean, here we go again. Kenneth talks about his identity theory again. But like, teams need an identity, okay? We just talked about Moonlights, right? PXG is probably the most standard identity, I think, across the board. But when I reflect back on Riptide and watching that from the commentary booth, in my opinion, the reason why why am I blanking on the Frozen Pro didn't work for Kyo was because Kyo is inherently tasked with being more aggressive, whereas on Milk Duds or Milk Duds, Milky Way, Voie Lactée, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. On that team, Bran is playing the 3rd man and Jared is playing the 2nd man, even though they're holding the same weapons that Kyo and Bursty were. And that dynamic changes how each weapon interacts with the game and interacts with their opponents. And I think with that in mind, you're going to see a few more things become more notable, and the same composition is not going to work plug and play for every team. Mm-hmm. If I had Hypernova attempt the Moonlight composition, they would not make top 8. They would not have made alpha bracket, right? Like, that's the reality of it. If Duck Motif tried TZS's composition, they'd be out of luck too, right? So the important part is more about establishing how you want to play the game as a team and developing a series of weapons around that works well with each other to play the game and enables you to play the game how you want to play it. And that's the crux of the identity thing. So, yes, to that end, you will see maybe more weapon diversity, but always it comes with the context, right? Moonlight does not run that comp. If Omega is trying to barrel in 24/7 and go for trades constantly, or maybe they still do, and it kind of works. But the second that Nolan switches off of 96 and plays something more aggressive, the comp falls apart, right? You plug it in with a carbon roller, the comp falls apart. So it's those kinds of things where it is not as simple as swapping one thing for another. And therefore, don't go play PXG's comp just because PXG won with it. Mm-hmm. Is all I ask.
It's actually crazy. It's actually amazing you mentioned that, because I've always seen teams I've always seen takes where people are like, oh, this weapon must be very good, like the E-Leader that just popped out of Splat World Series, I got a lot more fun. I was like, okay, maybe if I have it on my hand, maybe it's actually a good weapon. It's actually just because the player in the team itself actually knows how to make that work, and that's like the key thing that teams forget about. It's actually interesting you brought up the Frozen Pro that Kill played, because I also had that set before you hopped in for commentary for Grand Finals, because I had the FT Win and Voy Latte set that go to Game 5, and there were several times that Kill brought out the Frozen Pro, and me and Sav looked at each other and we're like, wait, this doesn't seem like a typical weapon we normally see. And then the results kind of show for itself. I think it might have been. I think with the set we saw, it was 0-2, 0 wins, 2 losses when Kill was playing that. So to that degree. So it's like, I think when teams try to be like, they look at it completely out of context, like, oh, this weapon must actually work. They then start realizing that they'll just fumble the bag really quickly.
Here's the other thing that I will just let Pastry talk because I've talked for long enough. In Samurai Cat's composition, if you're thinking about reflecting on that, one of the main reasons it works is because Munya plays Slosher in a significantly different way than everyone else does. Munya plays support Slosher more than anything, at least is what it feels like to be, Pastry, with just how much paint that he puts down for the team, and that kind of more enables everyone else to take care of the rest of it. And on Eeltail, why wouldn't you want the Slosher, right?
Yeah, it's very. I just love this talk about comp identities as a whole. Samurai Cat, I've seen Samurai Cat play in multiple events. So when I'll pass SWS, and I think it's part of it is like, okay, the way we want to play with like Munya playing more supportive, Hitokuchi being just really good at fighting those picks on this map, removing people from those ledges, and giving Samurai Costa more room to like, okay, Hitokuchi, Munya, they cover the wedges very consistently. I can go for more of my frags. I can, for example, like something like Umami, they'll fight them off the wedges. I'll get to go for more one shots. And then like from there, Suemari is just really good fill. But this is a really, really important point of that though. The comp can be good on paper. Like also just another example, like the Invisible Free Ray Mario, where, they swapped comps a lot during SWS, but like, that kind of theme of having the rapid alongside the splash. Sometimes they'd run the zap and the S blast, but generally like that kind of like more flexible, more release comp. That works really well because their coordination is ridiculous. They are so good at taking fights together and syncing their fights together that they may not necessarily want the pen or even want the edit, for example. Like a lot of people think, okay, it's Naigora. Naigora is the best spy wing in the world. They probably are going to have the pen, they're going to have an edit. But then they just didn't run edit at all. They ran Nautilus because their fighting is better, their coordination's better.
And Mini!
Yes, Mini!
We'll play Mini!
The anti samurai Kazuto button. I will quick Zuka, you will perish.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
That is, I mean, like, that's no secret, by the way, folks. Welcome back to the Zuka meta. It's coming if you're going to see leaders rise up again, and chargers especially, playing Krakens and Vacuums. Zuka is coming. It's inevitable. So you come back here in 2 months after we watch, double Zuka matches in the Nintendo League and say, sorry, K-Bot, for doubting you, but it's coming. You all are not going to like it either because you're going to be like, here we go again. It's more Zuka. Woohoo. But it's coming.
We have literally went full circle. The thing that we erased was the splash and the sloshing machine meta that started from the ancient times of Splatoon 3. We just completely wiped that out. Now we're back to Zuka again. It also, however, leads to an interesting point. You might see teams actually try to find weapons that actually counter the enemy team if it works out well for them. I think if E-Leader starts to become flavor of the month, then I think the true revelation of Zukas will just pop up in states, and we'll be back to double Zuka, cooler, whatever the fourth weapon teams just want to use for whatever flavor is. I'm sure that might inevitably come back.
I guarantee you that's the reason why Goss was on shot versus double crap. Like, it's that simple.
It's almost like you should actually like try to counterpick maps and modes and also pick your weapon loadout, to try to counter the other team, which is for some reason just something that is very easily lost on people. Like, yes, like I think what best summarizes this is you need to find your team identity, outside of your composition. Like, your composition is not everything. Like, it's, very little at the very, at the end of the day. It's up to your playstyle. But at the end of the day, once you figure out, your playstyle, then you can build your arsenal of weapons. And from there, you can figure out how your arsenal of weapons plays against the other team. Unless you're TZS and you're all one tricks, then you just, you know your play style. You throw up a prayer and you're like, all right, here we go, Jesus, take the wheel.
The rapture's coming.
The rapture's coming. That's right.
You kind of just remind me of my Riptide pickup that I only played. Granted, it was a bronze appearance, but we had to spend months trying to figure out what exactly do we want to do as a team. It took us several trials and errors. We had one person tell us you should look at this because this weapon seems to be really popular by top level teams, and I immediately had to shut down 500 notions of that because I simply said, "Yo, we've got to play to our strengths the entire time." And so here's a funny story, by the way. I was supposed to be the Zuka. I was supposed to be the shot main for the team, and I realized I was whiffing on all my shots. So I was like, "Hey, hear me out on this. Why don't I just play V Junior because we did it before and has worked out pretty stellarly. Even though it was bronze bracket, got us to day 3, and because it worked out better than my strengths. So I think you get to see." You might get to see people get a little too into the weeds of, oh, let's see how the top level teams actually use these weapons. But what do you want to say?
It won an area cup, so it must be good.
Yes.
You have no idea.
Tri-Stringer top Lord alongside Corliss. Corliss is now meta.
Actually,
we all have glasses, so we can all push up at the same time.
I don't have glasses. I'm missing out.
I'm glad that we had that discussion all together because that is so important, and I really hope all you people who are starting out, please don't get too fixated on top level comps unless you actually can do it.
You've been warned.
I like how we just went from like SuperJump to really focus on the compositions, but
truthfully though, SuperJump, it was pretty much nothing was extraordinary. Nothing was surprising. It's the reason why we only briefly touched upon it. K-Bod definitely just touched upon it. It's like, well, this really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. It was just
the most surprising thing was some of the compositions, admittedly. And I also think that the context of SuperJump as the true preseason #1 event for the NA League, I think is perhaps more impactful here. And seeing how teams are going to start adjusting to one another and whatever Hexen and Kyo are going to cook up next for their team into what the future weeks of the season are going to be, I think is going to be real interesting to watch out for, just to see what that'll start looking like.
Full agree 100%, and I think that's just it's very well said. So yeah, so that's pretty much that for SuperJump, pretty much, and it was exactly the weapon or the comp context in general. We do want to move forward here with the upcoming events. DRF, it's time, because it is the CCA is indeed back and ready to go, because you guys are running a fall circuit kind of similar to what you guys did last year, right?
Yes, we are bringing back the circuit. It was the event that we ran last fall in place of the league. Just, admittedly, the first time we brought it up is because we felt like we needed a little bit of a change of pace. The league is great, but when you do it for 7 seasons in a row, it does get a little bit stale. So we wanted something that was a little bit faster paced. Teams weren't confined to playing 5 teams in a given semester. And the circuit was our solution to one, allowing teams to play more matches against more opponents, provide them more opportunities to make adjustments and such. And as well as introducing the idea of a dynamic division, because folks always love their divisions. They get so attached to them. It's something that they were born with and, have to represent the rest of their life. So that's where the idea of the circuit really came from, was to solve those 2 problems that the community regularly faces. So we brought it back. We learned a lot from the first iteration of the circuit, and now we're making some adjustments. We're trying to cut down the runtime of a given qualifier, because qualifiers were averaging 4 hours, and we had 5 of them. So now,
come on, these kids gotta get
time a little bit.
We got to get them trained up for the next thing.
I know. Honestly, at this point, once we saw how the NA League shook out, well, 1, we were very glad to decide to run on Sundays, and 2, we were like, damn, 8 hours, the 3 and the 3.5 that we're running for our qualifiers is nothing apparently. So
yeah.
I'm just starting to imagine college for some reason college kids wanting to play in the NA League. I'm like, why are you doing this? You should be studying right right now. That's just my
Hey, shout out to the llamas, the NCCS llamas. TCS decided to make it a little thing this semester, or for the NA League, I guess. That we always value making the most of your tournament runs and playing way more matches than you reasonably should to get the result that you ultimately get. So we are going to recognize every week the team that does play the most ladder matches. And this week it was the NCCS llamas at 13 sets in 3 hours, which is actually really impressive, given that I believe teams typically, when they did the 4-hour ladders, it's typically pushed to like 16. So the llamas were very efficient, and they were great this week in the NA League. I'm excited to see how they do in the CCA.
What?
13 sets in 3 hours.
Oh, yeah. The number of sets that teams get in when it's just 2 games of turf war that they have to play is incredible. That is not the case here. When it's 2 games of random turf war at that, numbers get up there.
They certainly do. But yeah, I mean, with the circuit though, we are making a couple of those adjustments. And we are also going to have 6 qualifiers. Again, we might be slightly kicking ourselves now that we know that how the NA League is working out, because that's just a lot of Splatoon every single weekend. But we're excited about it. We've also introduced this idea of a split format. So we're going to have 3 qualifiers in the first split. And then 3 qualifiers in the second split. Between the 2 splits, that's where the dynamic divisions kick in. So teams that do really well in their division in the first split can actually promote to the division above them. And they'll be able to possibly even qualify for the circuit finals for the division above them because they did so well in the first split. So I do think that this actually introduces a lot of really fun dynamics that continues to push teams forward. I know one of the issues that comes up from time to time with divisions is that, teams sometimes they don't want to, push past Div 5 because then they're going to get low ink ban. But we've now created incentive to do well in your division and then go chase the next goal immediately within the same season to start pushing yourself. And even if they ultimately fail, they still qualified for, say Division 3 in the first split, and they can go play in the circuit finals in Division 3. And even on top of that, we've introduced the last chance qualifier, because those are always fun in every other esport. So we're gonna take our own shot at it. And then of course bringing back the circuit finals format, that modified Swiss, whatever you want to call it, early elimination Swiss. I've heard a billion different names for it. I don't know what you all call it.
Are you trying to take like nearly every format that Riot has ever done with League of Legends and Valorant and try to squish it all into one?
Hey, honestly, we need more like tournament creativity within the Splatoon scene. And with the CCA, we've always taken the approach of we are not afraid to try something as long as we can make an educated approach to it. And we did very well with how we approached the circuit. Yes, there was a few hiccups and whatever. The point system wasn't particularly great. Dynamic divisions was a little too dynamic. But we hit gold on the modified Swiss. And I think a lot of teams love it. We talked with Sendu. Sendu implemented it into his platform. We can now run modified Swiss there, and other orgs can do the same. Now, of course, I already have a feeling that there's going to be a number of TOs that go out there and they're like, let's run this. And they're going to run it with like some janky number, like 19 teams, because they think this is a cool idea. And they're going to realize real quick, they're like, wow, this tournament format sucks. No, this is one of those things where you do the research. If the tournament format sucks, it's because you're the problem. So,
that's
do your
real.
homework.
That's real.
Yes, do your homework about tournament formats. Like, not every tournament format has a seat at the table for what you're trying to do.
It almost sounds like, in a way, remember how we were talking about team comps and how team comps don't always fit the players?
Yes.
maybe every tournament shouldn't be modified Swiss, even though it's a great
No, it certainly should not be. I love this tournament format so much. I've already told Popgood, because he saw it, he's like, wow, I've never seen this before. And I was like, well, Popgood, if you commentated for us, you would have seen the format. But jokes aside, I knew he wasn't available.
Any other game.
I'm staring at you,
Rocket League, League of Legends, Valorant, Counter-Strike, yeah, any other esport, they've run this before. So we're not doing anything special. It's special to the Splatoon scene because the Splatoon scene is so isolated.
So we're just behind the times, but just where we're.
Yes, correct.
Yes, yeah. At the end of the day, yes. I always like to say the Splatoon community is special in all of the best ways possible, but man, the Splatoon scene doesn't know crap.
Yes, sir.
They really don't. I think that's why it frustrates folks like K-Bot and I, who are, involved in esports scenes outside of Splatoon as well, especially within the academic scene, where you just have to kind of know a little bit of everything.
You kids would not last a day out there.
No, they really weren't. Kira and I talk about it all the time, and she's like, damn, Kira TOs everything under the sun, feels like. And she's just like, yeah, the Splatoon scene, I never understand it. Why, it just certain things don't click with them.
It's because they're all high schoolers.
You two need to get your own show
in the room, and they're all high schoolers. Shout out to the Splatoon Stronghold census.
True.
I just want to shout out specifically the approach the approach CCA took to their divs, how divs can actually promote like that. I cannot put in the words how cool of an idea that sounds like, because I count Calc's div 5, and I think that div was fair. I don't have any complaints about the div I got Calc back then, but I got into a point where I'm not div 5 anymore. Just overall not, right? And I think a lot of players, kind of have that tale where it's they get a div, but then it does take a lot of resources to actually run looting. It takes a lot. So it's not easy to get the div always calculated, and there's some team thing and all that. So I like the idea of it being more dynamic, being able to change actually mid-season like that. That is awesome. I love that.
Pastry, nobody thinks they're div 5 until 110 other teams, better teams, sign up with them. Also, I don't know what collegiate teams are complaining about. At least they get a new div twice a year instead of once every year and a half. So I don't know what they're complaining about here. It sounds reasonable.
I think our community is great. They don't really complain much, because I think they do recognize just how privileged they are in that regard, where they're effectively going to get divisions 3 times in a given year now, given that they'll get a division adjustment between split 1 and 2 if deemed necessary. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity that the CCA provides these teams that you just don't get in the greater scene.
Can I put a footnote that DRF came out? You both need your own show at some point.
Actually, what I think this is DRF, and I need to talk more in general.
I think that's literally what this is.
I love you. Yeah. I love you two already. My goodness. Real quickly, DRF. What teams are going to make Div 1 out of CCA, if you happen to know? Also, there's one team, and I think I think will automatically be Div 1. I might want to put them Div X if that ever existed in the CCA side. You might know what.
We will never do a Div X. I will start there. We will never do a Div X. We'll cap out a Div 1. But yeah, there's 2 teams that I think immediately come to mind for everybody. We'll start with the obvious one, which is PSU Blue. Now they're in a little bit of a situation right now. They're still trying to figure out, what and if they're going to be able to play. So shout out to Penn State though in general. They had, I heard, over 35 tryouts. And wow. Yeah, which is crazy numbers.
That is crazy numbers for Splatoon at any institution.
Splatoon. And I don't even K-Bot, do you get 35 people trying out for any of your other titles?
Hold on. Let's do some math here. PSU undergraduate population. Okay, student body at Penn State is 42,000 undergraduate students.
It's a very large school.
So let's take what do you say? 34? 34 divided by 35 divided by what did I just say? 42?
42,000.
4,200.
It's very small.
42,000. Yeah, let's go with 0.08. Okay, great. Now, the largest game that I had was I had 21 total, counting my varsity roster, which was already decided. I had 21 or 20 Marvel Rivals tryouts with an undergraduate population of about 7,000. So afraid I still have them beat at 2.8%, but still crazy regardless.
Yes, no, certainly. When you get to the rates, it's Penn State. They have more people to work with, so
Yes.
I think it's gonna be a little bit easier to find more Splatoon players. But those are numbers we still have never seen before in the Splatoon community. To get 35 tryouts, they're gonna run 6 teams this year. Which God bless whoever the team manager is or whatever the manager is. Like they are in for a time. So
30 hours
PSU Blue
a day.
Yeah. No, PSU Blue, assuming that things work out for them, they're going to be a team to watch out for.
I can't keep track of my 12 teams, and that's my full-time job. So good luck.
I know, the poor student manager.
Yeah.
Then the other team that I'm going to shout out here is one that I think some folks have have become more aware of, but that's going to be Las Crituras out of VCU. This is one of the single most stacked teams that has ever graced the CCA. This semester, from what I have heard, their roster is going to be Lux, who played with the Sea Cows, Fox, who has also played with the Sea Cows, and is also on Artifice, which is like, Div 1 Ludi, from last season. Havoc, who is just historically been a fantastic player, hasn't really played structured competitive in a while, but is,
So you're saying he's washed?
It's like riding a bike. Hey, but honestly,
so
washed, top level washed is still really dang good.
It is. I'm just poking fun at Havoc because he's poked fun at me on Twitter plenty of times, so all good.
And then lastly, Thunder out of Crush Soda apparently goes to VCU. So
sources on this? Is this true? Is this true sources? Because when I heard this at Ripped, I'm like, what? Are you sure VCU has that NIL money somewhere?
VCU has told me this directly. I have to go look at their registration. I don't know if they put it in yet, but this on paper is one of the most stacked, if not the number one most stacked roster we have ever seen in the CCA.
I'm still speechless when I heard it. Yeah, go ahead, Pastry.
So they're winning, right? They're winning.
One would presume. Oh no, we're gonna go on PSU Blue Copium here, and all right, fine, let's hear it.
Well, see, the thing that I think is really interesting to CCA is that just because you have a top level player doesn't necessarily, make you the one that's going to win the whole
correct,
semester.
But they have 4.
But they do have 4. So I do think that this ultimately is going to be VCU's to lose. PSU is going to be the number 1 team to try to contest that. Now, will they be able to do so? Time will tell. PSU has played together more. So, if they have more of an actual team synergy, they've won the CCA twice in the last 2 years. So, is that going to play a factor? Yes. But is it going to be enough to catch up to the sheer raw talent that VCU is putting out there? That's going to be the number 1 question.
I do want to shout out PSU Blue real quick because they also had a really good placement at Riptide when I got to saw them in day 3 and make their run. They were the team that also beat LeBron and the Lakers actually too. I think that went to a game 5. So it was like, yeah, that's a team that you would think VCU it is their team to lose, but PSU Blue is still going to be pretty strong though.
All I'm gonna say with PSU Blue is that I have gripes with my fellow seeders from Riptide. Like, I called it from frame 1. I said PSU Blue will be a top 16 team. Now, on paper, seeding wise, I put them as the 19th seed, but nobody else had them, I think, in the top 25. Like, I only seeded through like 10. You seeded the top 10, K-Bot, so yeah. but like, I think
K-Bot's clear. He's innocent.
Yeah.
Like, I think Popka put PSU Blue as like the 33rd seed or something, and I'm like, this is a team that beat the Sea Cows. Like, they smacked the Sea Cows. Like, why are we putting the Sea Cows on top, like seeding them over PSU Blue? So PSU Blue is a much stronger roster than I think a lot of people continue to even give them credit for. Now, this is going to be their biggest challenge yet. So I think that's going to be the number one storyline that everyone's going to be watching out for. I think that with the qualifiers, the way that these work out as well, being majority best of 3, because we're trying to, run a fast qualifier, fast tournament. So there is, very little wiggle room to kind of mess up. So we're going to get some more exciting storylines as well. I think that quick, just rattle off some teams that could surprise here. Towson is an up and coming team. They picked up Ori. Like, Ori is now playing in the CCA, which is absolutely absurd. So now Towson might have a chance because Kai has already shown up to be a star in the CCA. Now you paired him with someone as crazy as Ori as well. And now the question is, how is this dynamic going to work? Because, again, raw talent, they're going to be a contender to hang in with that, top 6 group. UCSD has always been really good. Now they have to, figure out what is life going to be like post Goat Child, post Ocean Opal. Is Nerdy Adam ready to take this team to the next level? I don't know. How are these new roster additions going to work? Because the nature of Collegiate is that rosters are changing every year, if not every semester. Like, that's going to be a thing. The University of Florida, they came up short twice last year. 2nd place in the circuit, 2nd place in the league. Henlo was a big part of that, but Henlo graduated. What is going to be University of Florida's game plan now? Like, it just goes on and on and on. That Collegiate is so dynamic, and that's what makes it interesting. Combine that with the circuit format being so fast and so little room for error that I think that you'll see a couple of surprise teams make their way up to the top and contend. But at the end of the day, PSU versus VCU is where we're going to be seeing, I think, our finals match come December 7th or whatever day it is.
I'll go on the record.
Your own finals date, SMH.
It's the 7th. Yes. Okay. I got it off the top of my head.
I was about to roast you for good after that one. Real quick comment here. DRF also have to consider that CCALs probably have participated in tournaments outside of CCA versus what PSU Blue, which I feel like it's once in a while. So that's probably where you can see some of that warp seeding logic.
100%.
Yeah, that's good. That's bound to happen. That's bound to happen for sure. But yeah, thank you for giving us the rundown. There will be collegiate segments in the future centered around Division 1 for those. Keeping tabs on that. That'll be fun, and I still want to know where VCU got that NIL money from to get Havoc and Thunder.
I know, yeah. Like, the NIL money must be real strong. Yeah. Like, I didn't even know Splatoon had NIL money.
There's Splatoon players already. It's all over.
Oh,
all right. I think I'm good to wrap it up because I gotta be somewhere, and I think some of us have to be somewhere. So I'm gonna go
in my bed. Is where
you gotta be on your bed. K-Bot, left to right. Where can the people find you?
Find me on Blue Sky is where I post most of my Splatoon stuff. I actually didn't think about what to plug because usually I come up with something more creative than my stuff because people probably know where to find me. And if you don't, that's fine. I'm irrelevant at this point. Just watch the NA League. Yes, it's going to be a long series, but sit there, watch it, get the viewership numbers up, keep the viewership numbers consistent all season to show that, we're appreciative of the fact that this is happening at all because this is a novelty for sure. And something like it we probably won't see for another 3 or 4 years. So enjoy it while it lasts. And I certainly will be as well, even if it means that I have to sit and stare at help desk for every Saturday for the next 8 weeks, 9 weeks, however long it is. I'll go though. I know.
Welcome back to.
Can you really retire? I guess not.
No, that'll be your arc or your next chapter in your autobiography. DRF, where can the people find you?
Hey, K-Bot, when Big N calls, I mean, you kind of have to be there. So I don't blame you one bit.
That's correct.
As for myself, you can find me on Twitter, DRF_Splatoon, Blue Sky, DRF-Splatoon, and on Twitch, Triton DRF. But per usual, you can find me over at the CCA covering all things Collegiate Splatoon. And you could also find me being Jordan Kent's #1 fan for the NA League, because, I mean, I love all the commentators. You know, they did a fantastic job, but Jordan Kent put out his best work this past weekend. And I think that's gone underappreciated. So I if I'm not rooting for TZS, I am rooting for Jordan Kent.
You'll have a Jordan Kent fan club team show up.
Yeah.
Patreon, where can the people find you?
Absolutely. So, actually, funny enough, I was gonna go online on Switch here. Actually, after this, I was gonna do like an Anarchy bingo speed run. But I'm pretty much on every social. If you search up Peak Puppy Page, you're finding me. Like I will be there. But yeah, I'm gonna probably go live on Twitch in about like 20 or so minutes, just doing some funny Anarchy bingo with the chat.
Awesome. Find me, Kiln2570, Blue Sky, and on Twitch on my streaming break, because I am out on vacation for the next 2 or 3 weeks here. So that will be a fun little vacation for me, which also means, unfortunately, I will not be able to catch the NA Leagues for the upcoming 3 weeks, for however long that will be. So I apologize for the viewership.
No, one viewer. How could you?
Not my one viewership. Yeah, but no, seriously, support the Splatoon, support the NA League when they go live. Support the CCA circuit coming up here this upcoming semester, and of course, watch Area Cup whenever you guys can. For some reason, you're up at those times. All right, that's all for Splat Chat episode 18 with the rest of our crew. I'm Keelan saying, have a good rest of your night. We will see you guys for the next edition of Splat Chat. Take care, everybody.